thrive, we have to follow well. Really sexy advice. I know who I'm talking to. I know that a lot of you just came to college and you're done following. You're on your own, you're free, right? And some of us were thinking, I have kids and I don't tell my kids to follow. Hey, be a really good follower. No, we say, be a good leader, right? But the Bible actually says something a little different. It says in Hebrews 13, obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch over your souls, as those who will have to give an account. Let them do this with joy and not with groaning, for that will be of no advantage to you. Obey your leaders, submit to them, respect them. Ugh. We intrinsically react to that, don't we? This is not my favorite verse. I think of it and I'm like, not every leader, right? I think the reason why we react that way is because we live in a society that is obsessed with leadership. We no longer have managers, we have project leads. We no longer have writers or bloggers, we have thought leaders. In Amazon, I looked up, I was like, I wonder how many books are out there about leadership. I wonder, how many is that? So I looked it up, nearly 200,000 books out right now on leading. So then I was like, well, how many books are out there about following? Following well. 274. And when I looked further, I was like, well, what kind of books are they? Most of them are books about how to lead when I'm not really the leader. So it doesn't really count. And I have to be honest, I have not been a great follower. In fact, when I was younger, I was really bad at it. I had an innate belief that if I just put my head down and I worked hard enough or studied hard enough, I really didn't need a lot of advice. I didn't really need a lot of people. And I could do almost anything by myself. That, coupled with the love of adventure, I thrived on adventure, put those two things together, and you get some embarrassing results, right? One of those times, when I was younger, I found two of my friends and I decided to go on a trip, an adventure out west. I was newly out of college in my first job, and I had a conference I was at in San Francisco. And so we planned a trip from San Francisco to New Mexico, and we would hit National Park, big city, tourist attraction, whatever. We would camp for 3 nights and stay in a hotel for the 4th, because, showers and everything. And so we started out planning. My friend Amy, right there on the right, she said, hey, I was looking at the trip we planned out, and right around Santa Fe, we are very close to a Navajo reservation. And last summer, I was a student teacher there. And I would love it if we could just spend one day and go and visit the people I've made relationships with. Me and Natalie thought, well, that sounds interesting. Sounds like an adventure that we probably will never get a chance to do again. So yeah, let's do it. So I just want to show a map of what our trip looked like. San Francisco, we wander our way down. Around Flagstaff is when we headed to the flag. That flag is the Navajo reservation. Between the two areas, you see that there's no topographic mountains. That's because it's all desert. Hot desert in the middle of the summer. And we're in a crappy rental car. And that's exactly when, right between Flagstaff and the Navajo reservation, is when our crappy car decides to die. Not the car, but the air conditioning. The most important part to me. And so I was hot and I was miserable and I just wanted to make the time pass by as fast as possible. My friend Amy, she's the guide here. She's like, hey, I want to tell you about what's about to happen, who you're going to meet, the culture of the Navajos. And I, being a little headstrong, said, I don't really need that. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to be in the back seat. It's really hot. You go ahead and talk, but I'm sleeping. So I didn't hear any of it. So I wake up where we pulled into a driveway. We're on a Navajo reservation, but it doesn't really look like what I expected it to look like. We get out of the car, and she's like, this is the house of the Navajo chief. I want to introduce you. And I said, whoa, that's pretty awesome. I can't believe I'm getting to do this. And in my mind, because I'm an idiot, I'm picturing a large man, possibly with a headdress, maybe even smoking a pipe, because I'm an idiot. So we knock at the door, and the door swings open. It's a little old woman. I remember thinking this thought, I think there might have been something I missed. Maybe I should have stayed awake in the car ride and heard a little bit about the culture I'm in all of a sudden. So I kept it going. We come in, and she serves us dinner. It's awesome. Got to know her and her people that are really close to her. At the end of the night, she said, hey, do you have a place to stay tonight? And because we're young and dumb, we had no plans. And so she said, well, you can't stay with me. My house is too small. But Navajo Indians, they traditionally lived in a home called a hogan. Now we live in normal houses, but we have these hogans that we just use for meeting spaces, and they just sit empty. Would you like to stay in a hogan tonight? This is a picture of a hogan. And we thought, whoa, we get to do that? That's awesome. That sounds like an adventure. Yeah, I'll do that. Great place to stay. So we jump in the back of a pickup truck, and we start driving out to the hogan. And while we're driving out, all these little kids, all these children come out and start following us. And they're little girls around 9 to 13 years old. And I remember thinking this thought, man, Amy must have had such an impact to have all these girls come out and spend the one night she's in town. And I was really impressed with her. And we get to the hogan, we start playing like tag and flashlight tag and just have a great time. And by the end of the night at the hogan, we start getting ready for bed. So we all take our sleep bags and roll them out. The girls do too. And we start getting ready for bed. And the next couple things happen very fast. I begin getting ready for bed. I take off my shirt. My friend of mine, Amy, was standing to my right, but she's now on the floor. I looked at her thinking, why is she on the floor? And she's in her sleeping bag all the way up. And I come watching her, and I realize she's changing her clothes in her sleeping bag. And I scan to her face, and she's looking at me with like shock and horror. And I immediately realize that the whole room has gone silent, and everyone's staring at me. And I don't know what's going on. And so I just think the only thought that kind of came into my head is that maybe the Navajo culture is really modest. Maybe they don't change in front of each other. And so I look to my friend Amy for some sort of explanation. And she says the sentence I'll never forget. Lisa, these aren't all girls. Had I listened to my guide, I would have realized a key piece of information. That in the Navajo culture, whether you're a girl or a boy, if you're a child, you do not cut your hair. You have long, beautiful black hair to your mid-waist. And so what I thought was a room full of little girls was actually a room full of little girls and boys. Now I sense a little bit of judgment here, like I wouldn't make that mistake. There's no way I would do that. I want to prove you wrong. So I took a picture of three children that were there that night. One of them is actually a boy. And we're going to do a little poll, just to kind of make sure that no one has a lot of pride here, thinking you won't do this. So, who thinks child A is a boy? Raise your hand. Child B. Okay. Child C. You would all change your clothes in front of boys. Child A is the boy. That's right. So, I don't tell you this humiliating story. Well, actually, I do tell it because I like to make you laugh. But I also tell you this humiliating story because I think it gives an excellent point about following. I think we all follow someone, or we should. And good or bad, we are following someone. There are people in our lives that we look to emulate. So my question for you is, who are you following? Who in your life are you following? The Bible has a very, very clear and countercultural point about this. It says, follow well. Paul, one of the early church leaders, puts it like this in a different letter, a couple different letters. The 1 Thessalonians 5:12-13, we ask you, brothers, to respect those who labor among you and are over you in the Lord and admonish you, and to esteem them very highly in love because of their work. Be at peace among yourselves. Here's the thing, leading is not a bad thing. In fact, in the Bible, it says that if you desire leadership, you're desiring a good thing. It's good to lead. What the problem is it's become an identity issue for us. We've wrapped up our self-worth around leadership. And here's how that plays out. If I'm leading something, I wrap my worth around it, my identity around it, and so however it's doing is a reflection of me. However, the people that I'm leading feel about me is a reflection of me. Conversely, if you aren't leading something, you're constantly looking for a place and an opportunity to lead. A place to build your brand, promote yourself, get the next promotion, develop followers. And either problem, either situation, it's just one more case of a me-centered life. a life that revolves around my wishes, my demands, my agenda. And the Bible is pretty clear about that. Whenever the world revolves around ourselves, the Bible says it's pride. And following actually helps us grow. That's what it does for us. If we follow well, we are growing. Philippians 2, 3 through, actually it's a little shorter, 3 through 9. It says, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even the death on a cross. Therefore, God has highly exalted him. That's a big chunk of text. Let me break it down. God sent Jesus to earth. He has all the rights of the Son of God, but he dismissed them to the point that he'd even die for us, die on a cross. And God's response is to exalt him. When we humble ourselves, when we follow well, God exalts. And that promise isn't only for Jesus, because he's God's son, we might think that, but that promise is actually for us too. That if we humble ourselves, God promises to exalt us. It says in James 4:10, humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Humble yourself, and God will bless you. Insist on your own way, puff yourself up with pride, it will cost. Ultimately, I think following is a trust issue. It's so easy to trust a leader that we believe in, that makes the same decisions that we would make. The rubber meets the road when we have a leader that we don't agree with. How can we follow them? Now, if they're going somewhere immoral, don't do that. But if they are making decisions that are not quite ours, that's following. That's being humble. So, you might be thinking, all right, you got me. I'm going to try to follow better. But I don't really know how. I have 3 ideas for you. 3 ways today that you could go away and go and try to be a better follower. One is to find someone that's a little bit ahead of you. Someone that is just, maybe someone that you've watched and their life is thriving. Or maybe they just seem to be a little wiser or ahead in life. And so maybe ask them for a lunch or coffee and talk to them about your life. Ask advice, seek counsel, and then be humble and maybe think that they could have a perspective that you don't have. Maybe they can see things a little different, or maybe they have experiences that can add wisdom into your life. Do that. Second, I'd say, is read the Bible. The Bible, God, is our ultimate guide. He's our ultimate leader. And so we ultimately need to follow him well. And so if you're reading the Bible and you're like, my life isn't quite lining up with what he's wanting me to do, pivot, change, trust. Ultimately, he has your best interests at heart. He wants you to have a life that's thriving. And last, just like Greg said, get in a group. It's so much easier to follow in a group. It's much harder to go against the current alone. And people need you. People need to know you because there's only one you, and you have something to offer that's so unique. And the best thing you can do this year to thrive this semester is to be known and to be loved. And that's the reason you need to get in a group. And when God sees that sort of transformation, and when God sees you trying to follow and be humble, he responds. He shows up again and again. He blesses you. And that's why we thrive when we follow well. Principle number 2, we thrive when we celebrate. It seems like a little weird principle, like that. I don't need to be told to celebrate. I got this one down. Now, I know who I'm speaking to. I know the audience is a lot of Miami students. I also know that Miami just got ranked number 3 in the United States for partying. You do that well, guys. You do that well. want to make a little bit of a distinction. Partying and celebrating are totally different. They can look the same, but they're actually very different. Partying doesn't have a purpose, necessarily. There's a kind of a purpose. But it's not a person, and it's not an event. There's not a singular reason why you're necessarily doing a party. It may have a theme. It certainly is fun. But it's more of a big group of people gathering together, having a good time, relaxing, making memories, or depending on how you do it, forgetting things. But that's partying. Celebrating is very different. Celebrating has a person and a purpose. There is a person that you're celebrating and a reason why you're celebrating. They're very different. And so I think, my personal opinion, is that we're actually pretty bad at celebrating. I want to do a poll. In your mind, it's not actually a poll, it's more of a thinking thing. In your mind, I want you to think about the last time, with that new definition of celebrating, when's the last time you actually celebrated? Got that in your mind? Okay, second question. What is the last time you could have celebrated something? So it might be a new job, a new baby, a birthday, anniversary, new car, I don't know. Could be anything. Something in your life that you could have celebrated. Now compare those 2 days. My gut, as though they're pretty different. Something that you did celebrate was pretty long ago, but maybe even this week you could have celebrated something. Now I'm on staff at Crossroads. I'm a leader in this community, and I struggle with it. I gotta be honest. We are on Crossroads. We have a phrase that we don't walk, we run at things, and so we do a lot of things really fast. And so we have lots of to-do lists and project management to try to get all these different things done. So there's boards where we have a to-do, doing, done, and then celebrate. And so often the board of celebrate is empty or forgotten. I'll make it more personal. This year, on August 28th, I celebrated my 13th wedding anniversary with Ernie Kuhn. Thank you. That wasn't intentional, but thank you. 13 years of marriage. Now, I don't forget that I'm married. I don't forget the date. I know it by heart. It's very important to me. But on this August 28th, it took me till 11 in the morning to remember that it was my anniversary. And my husband, too. I'm bad at this. I'll be honest. But I wasn't always bad. I had let things kind of scoot into my life and become so busy that other things slid. Celebration became something I didn't necessarily have to do. And I'm making some changes because of it. I don't think I'm alone here. I think we could each think of an example that we could have celebrated something or should have celebrated something, but didn't. And before we get too down on ourselves, it's not just a Artie and Lisa pastor thing. It's not just a Ohio or American culture thing. I think we don't celebrate because it's a human nature thing. I think we have an issue. Thousands of years ago, Israelites were just freed from slavery. 400 years of slavery. And they had lost all culture, all really forms of knowing how to operate as a society, or as individuals, really. And God knew that. God looked at them and said, hey, I see that you're going to struggle, so I'm going to give you some rails. I'm going to give you some guides on how to live as a community and as individuals. And so those books in the Bible, at the very beginning of the Bible, where it's just rule, 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 that's God trying to put some rails up to them because he wanted his people, his chosen people, to thrive. Part of those rules is 7 different times of the year that they were instructed to have a festival. 7 different times that they were to stop everything and celebrate. It says in Deuteronomy 14:25-26, then you shall turn it into money and bind up the money in your hand and go to the place that the Lord your God chooses and spend the money for whatever you desire, oxen or sheep or wine or strong drink, whatever your appetite craves, and you shall eat there before the Lord your God and rejoice, you and your household. Why? Why would God hardwire it into his people to celebrate? I think it's because he knows something about human nature. I think it's the same reason why we work 60 hours a week, while we leave vacation on the table, while we struggle to invest in relationships, and why we're the most over-medicated society in the world? I think it's fear. I think we're afraid that if we were to stop striving, we'd be replaced. If we put ourselves out there and invite people into our lives, they might not show up. I think we're afraid that we're not worth it, that we're not lovable, and that we're replaceable. I think it's fear. I think we bought into the lie that everybody is out to get us, and the whole world is kind of on our shoulders. And that if we were to stop and celebrate, those lies become really loud. So that's why I think celebration does two things for us. One, it makes us stop striving. It makes us stop and remember that it's not on our shoulders, that there's a God that loves us and is fighting for us and working for us, and that we're not alone. And I think, too, probably more importantly, it does this. It helps us recognize the lies that we're hearing. It makes us stop and say, no, I am more than my job. My worth is more than what my friends think of me. So, I think we stop, we celebrate because we need to remember. We need to remember that there's a God. And in fact, early in Deuteronomy, that's what God says. He said, the reason why I'm giving you the rule, the reason why I'm telling you to celebrate, is so that you may learn to revere the Lord your God always, in Deuteronomy. He's asking us to celebrate so that we would remember. We remember the things that God has done in our lives. To remember that He is the one in control, not us. It's all illusion if you think you're in control of anything. And I think at the bigger level, celebration is a reversal of the way that life is and the way that life should be. I think we're supposed to be living in community. I think it's supposed to be that if my friend has something good in their life and is celebrating that I should feel the same celebration, the same joy, because I'm in community with them. And so if they get a promotion, I should be included in that celebration because that's what's good for them is good for me too. It's a community. And I want to say that celebration, though, it's not fun alone. We don't have our birthdays and we don't go out to dinner and get a piece of cake and put a candle in it and all by ourselves and go, woohoo, it's my birthday. That doesn't sound fun. No, celebration has to be with community. It has to be in a group. And in order to be in a group, you have to put yourself out there. You have to risk and invite people into your life. But man, it's worth it. Life can be so lonely if you do it alone. Because there's highs and there's lows. And if you don't have someone there for the highs, you won't have someone there for the lows either. So what are you going to do about it? What's the homework for this principle? Well, this one is pretty easy. Celebrate with people. Don't do it alone. Earlier today, we talked about all the different times that you could have celebrated, but you didn't. Pick one of those. Celebrate. Spend some money. Invite people in. But I know what you're thinking. I've got the homework, exams, soccer practice. I know. Life is busy. But I think if we prioritize the good things in our life, we will get better. Life will be more in line. I know that the bad things in my life get so much attention. So many thoughts in my life are focused on problem solving. What if I put just as much attention to the good things? What would that do to my heart? So I am going to be doing this. I'm going to be making some changes in my life. Actually, I'm going to nail it home a little closer. Is there anybody here that has a birthday today? Raise your hand. Tomorrow? This week?
Right.
You got someone? One person? Okay. Oh, you got two? There's one way over here. When's your birthday? 2 days. 2 days? When's your birthday? Thursday. This one? This one?
No.
Okay. I'm going to give you a $50 gift card. I want you to go out and I want you to celebrate with people. Okay? Now I know what you're thinking. You're kind of grumbling. I'll get you one too. I know that you're probably grumbling and thinking, I want my birthday to be this week. Dang it. Why didn't you do this next week? I didn't forget about you guys. I thought about you too. So today, right after service, in just a couple moments, we're going to go out in the atrium, and there's cupcakes and balloons. We're going to celebrate today. We're going to celebrate that you came today. You could have slept. It's very enticing. But you came here today. We're going to celebrate Crossroads. The Crossroads blesses us so often. We're going to celebrate the new year and what that means for all of us, new beginnings. We're going to celebrate today. And that's why we thrive when we celebrate. Now, before we close, I just want to pray real quick. Lord, thank you so much. Thank you for today. Thank you for everyone here. Thank you for all that you've done in my life, for teaching me to celebrate more, for opening our hearts and minds to following better and learning to make room in our life for people to know us. And we just thank you for what you're doing here. I pray that if I said anything that isn't of you, that it wouldn't stick. And I pray that you would open up our minds to remember the things that you want us to change in our lives. It's in your name, amen.